Today we are doing CV boots on an air-cooled Volkswagen, an independent rear suspension setup that has actual CVs, not a swing axle. To begin with, each side of it, the transmission or transaxle side and the hub side, each side has 6 bolts that hold it. They look like this. It's like a 12-point Allen head, and it's 8mm. And the problem with these is if it's an off-road car, a sandrail or something, or shoot, probably maybe even most street cars, the heads of them get all packed full of grease and dirt. So it's easy, if you don't watch out, to not get that in far enough and then round off the head of the bolt. So usually I'll, before I even start, I'll take a little pick like this and then just try to pick as much dirt as I can out of the bolt head, hit it with some brake clean and stuff, so the little 8mm gets a good bite on the bolt. Alright, so the ratchet's getting a little tedious. I'll try to use this. Alright, now, before we do the outer part, I'm going to leave that last one on the inside so I can rotate it while I get the outer ones out without that end of the axle dropping down and getting in the way. It's kind of a hassle. See how it wants to go right there. At least that last bolt will kind of hold it in place. It's kind of hard to see because this is kind of dirty, but there's little washers I was talking about. There's one right here between these two, and then if you rotate it, you'll see the next one. These two here, there's another big washer that connects these two. So there's 1, 2, 3 of those for 6 bolts. Alright, so we can see it a little better now that we're over here on the bench. And I'll show you the ones coming out of this side here. So you got 2 bolts. Now there should also be a small little washer on here. It's like a lock washer, but it's not a regular lock washer with like a cut on it, like a spring pressure thing. It's one of these. I don't know if you can see or not. They have like little grooves, little ridges on them, and I think they're supposed to help like lock the bolt head into that. But this car's been taken apart and put back together a whole bunch of times, and it's missing a few. It does have all these though. And I don't know if these are supposed to help the bolts stay torqued or just work as spacers so it doesn't go through too far. I'm not even sure what these are for, but I always use them since they're already there. So we'll pull all these out of here, and then we'll go ahead and get to taking this actual joint off. You have a lock ring on the end of the shaft here. I don't know if you can see that turning or not. It's still pretty greasy. I haven't really wiped it down, but you can get it with snap ring pliers. Well, I guess that's what it is, a snap ring. You can see it right there rotating. Right there is the opening where my finger is. So you have to use a pair of snap ring pliers or whatever. You can probably get it off with a screwdriver. I usually use snap rings though. Here, I got a pair right here. Let's see if I can do it reaching around the camera. There we go. After fighting it for a while, okay, let's bring this back over. After fighting it for a little bit, I got it off. So we'll put this over here in the little magnetic tray with the bolts. Don't want to lose that. Now that ring is off, this is something I noticed earlier that could be an issue. Once you get the CV, the actual joint off, you've got to take the old boot off the back of this. Well, the little lip here will get kind of seized on there and kind of tight. So when you just have the CV part in your hand, it's hard to tap it off or try to twist it or do whatever to get this to pop loose. So what I do before I actually pull this end off with the boot on it is that ring we just pulled off, there's another ring underneath. It's not a snap ring, it's just a collar that slides on, but it stops this from going down too far. While that's on there, I'll stand it up like this. I'll stand it up like that, so it's got something that it's resting on, and then you can lay a screwdriver or something on the ridge right there that attaches to the boot, and you can just tap it with a hammer lightly all the way around with a little screwdriver or punch, and it'll separate that. Then when you pull the CV off, then you can pull the boot off separate, and it won't be stuck to the CV still. It just seems a little easier to do it that way. CV. So I'll just lay a screwdriver on there, and there you go. That one popped right off. I probably could have done that one by hand after the CV was off, but if you do slide it off with it and it won't come off, it's kind of hard to hold this still to get it off, so that just seems to work better. Alright, so now with the outer little C-clip off, the whole CV will slide off of the shaft. You gotta watch though, if you rotate it too much. I actually did that just now in between video clips. If you twist it too much, there's I believe 6 ball bearings in here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's how you take those in and out to completely disassemble the joint. So if you rotate it real far one way, one of those will pop out. And then it's not a big deal. It's just sometimes it's kind of a fight to put them back together. So I just had one come out. I put it back in. Usually I like to try to keep it solid, and then I'll just use the parts washer to clean it. So I mean, even with the balls not out, it still cleans it thoroughly when it's submerged in solvent and brushed and everything. So you might have to give it a couple little taps like that. Oh yeah, look, this one's being stubborn. Alright, so that's got me kind of worried. Check out the teeth and everything. No, they look alright. It doesn't look like it's stripped or anything. Maybe it was just on there real tight. Been on there for so long. Okay, so now that that's out, the inner one, the little ring I was talking about, is probably in here. Which, uh-oh, looks like it might be missing. Hang on. Yeah. I don't see it in here. Must have dropped off and I didn't notice it. Alright, now we're on the other side. Oh, look, that one came off nice and quick. So there's that. Put it over here with the bolts. Don't want to lose it. And then now, same deal with hammering this off. There you go. Alright, so that's off. Now this is how quick it could go without issues. Feel like, and then now this just slips right off. And once again, there's no no inner ring like on the other side. That's odd. It the first one I did, there's a little, it's like a washer looking thing that slips up here and butts up against the inside of the joint. Reassembly, it's really just the same thing, only like I said, there's supposed to be a washer that would slide on here. Then you put your CV back on. And one thing you need to pay attention to is the direction you put this on, because it only goes the one way. The fatter part, you can see the fatter little lip here on this side. This side's an indent and it's skinnier. This side's level and it's thicker. And you can see that that's where that boot ring went on. So the boot went this way. So you always got to remember when you're putting them on, make sure that side is on the boot side, which is towards the inner part of the axle on both sides. And the part with the groove goes up towards the transaxle or the hub where it bolts up. Alright, so you could do all this, I guess, with just a can of brake clean. I've done it like that in the past. And even pulled the bearings out of the joints, taken them apart. Individually cleaned them all with a can of brake clean. I'm not going to do that here, but it is pretty simple. If just as you rotate the inner part of the joint there, you see the ball coming out? As you rotate it, you can rotate it far enough for one of them to pop out. And then you do that to all of them. And all it is just a ring here, and then a little inner part right there. Just pay attention to which direction the little grooves meet up with each other. They go in at angles, in opposite angles, so it can rotate and spin around. But like I said, with the parts washer here, I'll just soak these under fluid while I clean the axle shaft off, then scrub these out. We'll reassemble it. Alright, so you can see over now how it went up, and that was clean up, pretty separated. So I'm just going to keep submerging that a little more, and a little more, and then I'll back, and I'll straight go. So like I said, when we disassembled it, on the last one I did, I fought them both on this way from the outside in and then put the joints on. I think I'm going to start on the first side by going this way from the other side and slide it up, so I don't have to worry about this flopping inside out. Let's see if it'll go over. There we go. Alright, so I got it over from the opposite side. I'll pull it up to where it goes. There's a little ribbed area right here. You know, I noticed, I hope I'm not like out of picture here. I noticed on the other axle shaft, it didn't have this ribbed area like this. It had one large rib and then one other large rib, and this one between them. This one has a bunch of small ribs that like made up to that. So maybe they're two different axles that are in this car from different years or something. Maybe that's why this one didn't have those inner clips below the CV. Alright, so now that we got that in, like I said earlier, just make sure you're doing this the right way. You want the cut inside goes outward on both sides, and you can see the mark from where it was butted up to the boot before, so it's pretty hard to mess up. I remember taking this one apart. One of them was pretty stiff. Wonder if we'll have that issue again. Yeah, that feels a little off. Tap it on there. Maybe these splines on this axle are worn out or stripped a little bit or something, but I'm gonna keep using it anyway. We got that back on there. You got to make sure you rotate the boot around to where the holes are lined up with the CV. And then on this side, this one might be a little bit harder because I'm gonna have to put it on the opposite direction. Maybe I'll slip a screwdriver underneath of it, pry it out a little bit, and kind of try to guide it. See if that might stop it from doing that. Here, let's go. Oh, you know what? It might be easier to put the screwdriver from the inside without cutting the boot. There we go. So now I got it sticking through there like that. I don't know if you can see. Try to slip it on now. Yeah, it's working. Let's pop in the screwdriver back out there. Put it in a little more. Come on, come on. There we go. Hey, look, it looks like that worked without flopping it inside out. Now, if we can get it down to where it goes without it doing that. Yep, looks like it went perfect. So there we go, there's that one. And then the same deal with this CV, but I would like to put the little retaining C-clip on the other side first, because the last thing you want to do is drop your joint off this end of the shaft and end up getting it all dirty again and have to re-clean it. Alright, use a little screwdriver here to pop it back on. So that's back on. You want to make sure it's in the groove. Like right here, you can see it can rotate around a bit, showing that it's actually locked in the groove. And then same deal back on this side. I'm going to adjust. Make sure you got the right side going in toward the boot. Let's lift it up, line it up on there, put it on, and then I'll put the clip on this. Last time I did this, I packed a little bit of grease inside the boots first, but I did notice it seemed like it seeped out pretty quick. I don't know if I put too much grease in it or what. So this time I'm just going to kind of pull it out, rotate it, pack it in here, same deal, work it around, pull it out, rotate it, and then pack it in this side. And that ought to be able to, you know, like packing a wheel bearing by hand, where you just kind of knead it down and force the grease through the wheel bearing. You could probably get the same effect here. Just pack it in like this with your hand so it oozes all the way down through, and maybe get a little bit in the boot, but you don't want too much. Then it'll be oozing out everywhere. So yeah, I'll put this clip back on for this side, and then I'll go ahead and pack them up with some grease. Alright, so we got them all packed up, and I went ahead and stuck them back in. Didn't record that whole process. I figured it'd be a little tedious for some of the small little lock washers I was missing. I just used some regular ones from the hardware store that I had laying around. Don't know if you can see that or not, but I just used normal little lock washers. I don't even remember what size they were. Probably 7/16 or something like that. But yeah, it's all in and good and pretty simple, really.